And hello, a good morning to our friends in the US. Good afternoon to our friends in EMEA. This is Martin Mahler speaking live from London. I'm the CEO and founder of Astrato. And together with me today, we have a plan full of action with a super talented team of Joe, wave to the camera. Here we go, Stephanie French and Piers Bachelor. So 4 great speakers, a lot of content, another Astrato Live where you hear it directly from us. And this is a live recording. So if I all of a sudden disappear, my mic drops off, or I say something bad, it will not go away because we believe in authenticity and say it as it is on the top of your mind. So speakers will turn quite shortly. Today we have a bunch of new product features that are going to be announced, shared, and showcased. Also some past things. Also Stephanie French will showcase some of her latest and greatest dashboards in a discussion with Piers, who will later on also show us some exciting data science, Snowpark integration. Snowpark for Python was announced in launch, I think, G8, actually 2 weeks ago. Congratulations, Snowflake folks. And we immediately get our hands on top of that. But before we kick off, let's get started. Some housekeeping, really housekeeping. Well, as you know, we're quite active. We have a very fast-paced release cycle. In general, what I wanted to show you just briefly is like, how can you stay in touch with what Astrato is shipping, working on, and producing? Obviously, release notes. For those of you who have don't know about that, can you share my screen, Elisabetta? Sorry about that. Oh, here we go. Nice. So we keep them all nice and tidy. Amina, shoot out to yourself. Everything that is coming out, so you'll see exactly how fast and what is actually being released. So when you see something new in the product, don't be surprised. Or in case you haven't been following us for a while, you can see a nice little overview of what we've been working on in the past. But it's not just the past that's exciting, it's the future. As you know, we're working towards an extremely ambitious and visionary roadmap that we have decided to also outline publicly. So when you go to astrato.io, you'll be seeing here under product a tiny little section that's called roadmap. And this is now a live overview that we are maintaining for you in real time. So over here, you have on a high level all the stuff that has been, shipped and been released. We call that internally epics. The stuff that is in progress and all the things that we're working on. In this case, towards Q4 and Q1 next year and the future. A lot of interesting items, such as the self-service explorer. You'll be probably familiar with it if you know us from VizLib. It's a shopping cart approach to self-service, to build your own dashboard or reports without having to, build any kind of coding. And of course, many more things. If there's something that you like, we are open here to work with you and to hear your ideas and your feedback. You can always come in here and say, look, actually, you can upvote things to receive some feedback. But if it's something that you want to discuss in more detail with us, you can always reach out. But again, we're building in public. So I'm encouraging you, take any kind of item that's on our roadmap and come to our Astrato Galaxy. Over here, you can sign in with the same credentials where you have an Astrato account. So those two are linked, right? And you will be able to see not just what's been up and going on in the community, such as posting different posts, but also product designers. Oh, this is logging me in now. Give me a second. Here we go. But we also have Astratronauts and VizLib and Astrato employees who are actively engaged here to work with you. So this is, for example, our newly joined product designer, Aoife Kroll, who is actually working on the left-hand panel, trying to improve it. So we're engaging with you, trying to get you feedback, and we're all reading this. So if there's anything you want to share, please do collaborate with us. We're building in public, and we want you to be part of that. Of course, we have a November competition this year with a Data DNA challenge, resume and CV tips. Maybe Stephanie or Emily will be able to show us some, but do participate. This is quite active, and you have all of us on this as well. That's enough from my side. Now we're back to product features. snowpark examples and some use cases around Google Analytics and how that was implemented in Astrato. But one thing that I'm really excited about is, so the first time you'll be seeing a short summary over a unique, never been seen before implementation of the unified star schema. What it is, what it solves, and why this is so valuable for data in the cloud. Joe Bickley will tell you all about it. But without stealing your thunder, Joe, welcome to the show. Over to you. Show us what you have up your sleeves.
Thank you, Martin. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So before we get into all of the new stuff, so you saw that column of things delivered. I just wanted to recap on a couple of really big things we added. We touched on these in the last LinkedIn Live, and we've continued adding features and functionality to these as we go on. So in the last update, we spoke about not only being able to use Snowflake as the data source for Astrato, but also being able to get to data in BigQuery. We added 3 new capabilities really for how you can prepare data ready for analytics, whether that's exploring it with the Data Explorer when you're starting to figure out, have I selected the right data to work with? And then added support for more advanced, essentially, or custom measures with lots of filtering and custom fields. So if you've got a data table in your warehouse and you're missing a field, or you want to combine some text or manipulate a date, you can do that all through the UI. We get adding even more features into this to make it really easy to do some quite advanced capabilities in the product. So if you didn't catch those in the last update, rewatch it on our feed, and we get all the details about those. But for this session, let's focus on what we've just added. So if we go to the next slide, and there's 4 or 5 things I'm going to touch on initially, but rather than going slides, we may as well go straight with some demos. So let's start sharing my screen. All right, so first of all, so we spoke last time about adding support for BigQuery. So we have a lot of customers who, really embrace cloud for their data platforms, and some of them happen to use BigQuery. So we wanted to help support customers with being able to deliver the same Astrato capabilities from a different source. And we've done that again in this recent release, where we're also adding a slightly different type of data source for users to use, and that's Dremio. So Dremio is, rather than more of a conventional data warehouse, is a data lakehouse. So it looks to our product like a lot of tables, and you query it like you would do Snowflake or BigQuery. But what it also enables you to do is to combine different data sources and work with lots of files. So if you have things like Parquet files or CSV files, or anything that you would typically have more of a data lake approach on, you can surface that out and now make it available in Astrato as well. So I'm going to quickly connect to that. I'm going to grab a new data source. You'll see the icon here alongside our other data sources. Quickly connect to it. Nice and easy connection for this one. We use an access token to connect. We can use a couple of other methods as well. Quickly test my connection, and I can start working with my content. So I'm going to pick a project. I'm going to pick some demo data that we've got in here. Let's just call this demo data number 3, because I'm sure I've done it at least twice. Connect through to Dremio. And now the experience feels very similar to what you might have done when you're using, say, Snowflake or BigQuery. Everything feels the same experience, same simple to use UI, but I can start picking my data and working with just a different type of data source. Everything works very similar, custom measures, dimensions, all of that stuff is all included. I'm going to pick on the joins and straight away start building a workbook on that data. So another great way to just give business users rapid access to data in the warehouse with all the great features of Astrato. So I'll add a quick visualization to this one, just a very quick one. Let's just do a sum of the fare amounts by the pickup borough for the taxi rides. And hopefully we'll get a quick result come through. But rather than build a demo app entirely, here's one I made earlier just to show a little bit more detail. Again, the content that you see here is being driven in the same way, everything built the same way as you would do working against any data source, but we're focusing on just a different source solution. Dremio brings with it a whole load of different capabilities for just approaching data in the cloud in a different way. So we're happy to be able to support customers in doing that. Okay, so we'll switch from that then into looking at some of the more dashboard features that we've started adding into the product recently as well. So one of the capabilities is something that a lot of customers use to visualize data in a different way, but being quite efficient in the amount of space that you may be used on the screen. So in this table I have here, I've got a bunch of Airbnb listings by neighborhood, maybe the average price or how often they're available as just a regular field in a table. But sometimes the number doesn't give you trend information. So you might want a way of demonstrating, has that changed over time? So I can now very quickly switch this measure to be a visual representation. I can choose to have that as a line chart, and I can specify a dimension that I want to see that over, like a date or month or category. And I now, instead of seeing a single number, I can see that information over time. So I can spot if anything's, are any of these neighborhoods trending down in price, or is there seasonal variation like it looks like with this one, where prices seem to change at certain points in the year. And I can do that with maybe a field that is a measure that's maybe just doesn't work as well as a number, like availability. Whereas if I switch this one, maybe I could use a bar chart instead to be able to look at, what was the spread of availability like over the same time period? So could I correlate, price changes based on whether it was available or not, or what's the best time to go and stay in Back Bay, essentially. So lots and lots of different ways you can use visualizations in your tables to help, really show your data in it and the trending information on your data without having to build too many extra visualizations and ways of navigating through your data. Okay, cool. So what else have we added in? So I'll use the same dashboard just to highlight a couple of extra features as well. So in Astrato, pretty much anything is selectable. So if I want to select, the neighborhood, I can click in the table, click in charts and so on. And I can add in list boxes as well. So if I want to add in a filter box here to make some selections on a given field, I can do that too. But one of the challenges, if you've got a lot of fields in your data model and you don't want to clutter your user experience, you want to be able to still want to filter on maybe a particular field without having to have it in the UI all the time. So we've added this filter on any field capability in the filter bar. So what I can do is I can click on that, maybe look for, I'm going to go with accommodate. So I want to look for properties that could accommodate, say, 4 people. And that will add the little filter chip to the top of my filter bar here and filter everything else in my visualizations accordingly. So really good way to be able to let your users kind of explore any data in your data view without having to overbuild kind of components in the user experience. Okay, next one. So this was something that came up from one of our customers who wanted to be able to maybe have a table like this or a bar chart or something where he wanted to sort the content in the visualization by something that isn't in the visualization. So often this can be maybe if you have bucketed data or something like that, where your buckets might be alphabetical, but you want to sort them numerically so that they're in a logical order rather than alphabetical order. So we've added the ability to do that. So when I'm sorting my table, I can sort by a different measure. So in this case, I'm going to do this one by maybe the number of listings. So I'm basically making this like which is the most popular area. I can add that in, drag it to the top of my sort, make it sort descending. And now we can see that basically I'm showing I don't want to show an extra column in my table, but I just want to be able to sort by a different value. And I could do that by a measure or by a dimension if I wanted to as well. So if I wanted these sorted by, region or country or popularity or some of the rating, I can do that, but I don't have to show the number if I don't want to. So often, as I mentioned, used in bar charts where your groupings are not convenient in sort of sorting alphabetically or numerically. Okay, what else do we have to touch on? So a quick small one before I switch to the next topic. Again, something that came back from feedback from a lot of our customers was just ability to support more fonts in the products. So if If I want to go with something a little bit different in the font styling area of the product, then you can start changing the fonts around as you see fit. Still responsive, still fits in with the product, but giving you more control over the style of fonts and content within your workbook. We'll be adding these into some of our upcoming theme features as well in the future. Okay, so final thing to touch on. So one of the big capabilities we've been kind of gradually releasing and adding features and capabilities to in the product is actions. And actions are essentially a way for you to build in a no-code way more capabilities into your dashboards. So rather than maybe being pure data visualization dashboards, start turning them into something a little bit more dynamic. And there's lots of different types of scenarios that you can apply this to, and we'll be using this a lot going forward. So this is a relatively simple example. I'll just switch this one into preview, and I'll show a couple of things that I've been able to do, and I'll show you how we can go about adding new actions. So in my very, very, very basic dashboard here, I've had a user come in, and at this point, you kind of don't have any indication that you're in a dashboard in the first place. It kind of looks like a web page. So I have a very simple KPI of summing sales, and then maybe I want to show some trend information. So I can have a button to reveal a piece of content in a particular location. Or I can guide a user to say, well, actually, I want to look at details instead. So hide the chart, show the table in its place. Maybe in these types of scenarios where you want to guide users through maybe an experience in the product, you can change the actions that users can do based on being able to select things, hide and show things, set variables, and so on. But I can do more things. So if I want to filter some data, maybe if I'm looking at this trend chart and I want to see, well, I only want to look at Europe data, apply that filter for me as well, and let me clear it again. And then I can use that for navigation. So maybe if I've gone through this summary level information, I then want to go to the next section. So let's look at some more details. And I think Stephanie in her session is actually going to show a much better looking version of what I'm doing here, which is, again, if you want to be really efficient with the amount of content you put on your screen, you can control having maybe something like a filters pane, just drop down, maybe make a quick selection. I'm going to pick France in this instance and then hide them away again. So just different ways of allowing you to guide your users through the experience in the product, doing things like navigations, filtering, and so on. And then we'll get on to a little bit about what we're going to add to this going forward. So what I'll do, I'll show you how you add an action, because we've introduced essentially a no-code way of building up this type of content. So actions are basically a set of controls, events, and then some logic and outcomes. And you use them if you're familiar with things like gaming like Scratch, where you can kind of, without writing code, build up like a flow in your product. You can drag and drop these kind of controls to build up a sequence of events. So if I was to show you some of the ones I just added a moment ago, so for toggling filters, checking variables, switching views, I can build up quite advanced actions. One of the things we've added recently as well is a couple of things was around when the workbook opens. So when a user opens a workbook for the first time, maybe you want to select the current year or a particular value. And I can do that in different ways. So I can maybe, rather than on workbook entry, I want, when you go into a particular sheet, let's pick on details, I want to apply a filter automatically. So when I go into the detail sheet, I want you to select territories, countries, and set the value to France. Nice and straightforward, and click on done. So now when I do that same action I did before, where I navigate into the details pane, when I click the button, it'll automatically apply France as the filter for me directly in this view. So what that starts opening up is possibilities like when different users come in with different types of roles, we're going to add different types of functionality that you can reach. So you can say, well, set the filter to the current day or to the current user, so that you can really start to kind of guide users into the thing that they need to see first in their application. And then on top of that, we'll also be adding in more of our what we refer to as data apps controls. So things like maybe being able to write data back into the warehouse through an action, but require some validation up front, maybe to check a value set or that someone's selected a value. So we're going to build a lot of capabilities in here, all focused on no-code development of data apps beyond kind of the standard dashboarding capabilities. Okay, so I covered a lot of ground. So hopefully we can now switch over to Piers and Stephanie to show us how they can use some of these cool features to build something significantly better looking than I've managed. So over to you, Stephanie and Piers.
Thanks, Joe. Yeah, so I've got my Astrato hoodie and ready to go. And I've invited Stephanie on as the winner of the Dash Off. Stephanie has won the prize of building yet another outstanding dashboard and talking about it. Are you happy to share your screen? There it is. And I recognize already that signature Google Analytics heat map.
Yes. Yeah, so I use a heat map to show the days with the most traffic, days and hours with the most traffic, and yeah, sorry.
So I remember sending you the data for this in preparation, and there's a few things I see that weren't in the data, and you haven't joined another data set. So can you tell me how you pulled the day of the week out? Because that wasn't in the data set provided, the day of the week in the heat map.
Yeah, so I used custom fields, which this was the first time I've ever used it, and it was very helpful in getting that information, because I think if I just use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, it wouldn't be as impactful as using the actual day of the week. So that's how I pulled that out.
Okay, cool. And also, actually, let me zoom in a little bit. So 51% bounce rate. How did you calculate the bounce rate? Because that wasn't in the data set either.
Yeah, I actually use custom measures, which I have an example of here.
Okay.
So I actually use custom measures for quite a few things, like the percentages for all these different values for the organic search, direct, and that kind of thing. As you can see, I used lots of custom measures I didn't end up using within the chart because it just wasn't as valuable as some other things. But so to calculate the bounce rate, I just filtered to the page views that were 1 and then the entrance and divided that.
Okay, yeah, that gives you the total bounce rate. Okay, cool. That's a smart way to do it. But of course, entirely no code for now. If you don't mind me saying, yeah, Stephanie is learning SQL, but doesn't need to know SQL just for fun. Because all of these features that she's used so far are no code, all done in the Astrato UI. I can see you've got some switches there as well on the line chart on the top left.
Yeah.
How did you bring those in?
So this is the part I'm most proud of because it took a lot of complex. There's 4 different measures here for the users: the bounce rate, the page views, the sessions. So those all, along with the line chart, change dynamically based on whatever. They're supposed to change dynamically. I might be in the.
Okay. No worries. We can come back to that one if you want.
Okay. Well, they do change dynamically. I might be in the. This is a public.
I did have a chance to see the preview that you sent over. Thank you for that. So while that's loading, what was the most challenging part of working with the data?
With the data itself, Google Analytics has all of these nested fields. So there's a hits field, and under the hits field, there's different types of categorizations of what the hits are. So kind of unnesting all of that and figuring out how to choose the right fields and unnest it and see what's going to be the most impactful as far as visualizing the data, I think was the most challenging.
Yeah. And you didn't have the bounce rate or the day of the week. So
Yeah.
you managed to generate that with Astrato,
Right.
taking out some of that business logic.
It is working now.
Yeah.
It does work.
Nice. It's fast. New chart instantly. And you built that using actions?
Yes.
Can we have a quick look at the action?
Yep. So the
Sorry to make you
action.
jump around.
Oh no, no worries. So I created variables for each of the things that I wanted to show. So I wanted to show the week, the day, the month, and I also have the filters, which you can show and hide, which I also think is cool because it's kind of a little bit cluttered when you have it showing. So if you're not filtering, it's nice to just hide that. And then in the actions, I created an action for each thing. For hiding the filters, showing the month, showing the week, showing the day. And then within the layers, I went through each one and decided whether it was the week or the month or the day and whether to show it during which of those is true or false. So that was the most complex part of building this because it just took a lot of, with like the 4 metrics and then the 3 charts, just making sure all of that was shown and hidden and at the right time. That was like the most complex part of building the dashboard.
Okay. Yeah, and that's how the interactive resume was built as well.
Yes.
Which has amassed thousands and thousands of likes on LinkedIn. One of the things that we were asked about internally, got quite a lot of interest, was the election dashboard as well. Can we take a quick look at that?
Yeah.
I think we have time.
Okay, so I'm really interested in politics, in American politics, and it's such a complex topic. I like looking into it and seeing what I can discover through data. So I created a just kind of report, I guess, about the spending and how people think about the economy and the possible outcomes based on data modeling that I found online. I did not do it myself. So I use actions to create, you can choose what you want to see. And so this dashboard is about spending and how much spending goes into elections. And you can see this is just a midterm election, and you can see just how much is put into trying to get your party to win and how many people donate and to which parties and just all of the stuff that goes into spending. And then
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
We had a few comments come in. Christine says it's an excellent topic. Michael Armantrout, great UI. And one from Alex earlier says, where is it? The prize for work is more work.
That's true. But if you like your work, then it's okay.
Yeah.
So this one, so actually Piers gave me the idea of like trying to get inspiration from The Economist and kind of creating like funny titles and kind of like creating that title that's going to reel people in, I guess. So that's kind of what I did here. In like the Rainbow After the Storm, I try to create like a chart that looked like a rainbow. But this is just about how people feel about the economy going into the midterms, how important they think it was for who they decided to vote for. And like here, a lot of people are concerned about the price of food and consumer goods. So I kind of like zoomed in and showed that it actually is a problem. There is a lot of inflation, and and raising prices when it comes to like food and things like that.
Yeah. You've definitely tailored it to the American market with milk.
Yes.
That's definitely not a British thing. Okay, thank you very much, Stephanie. It's over to the next presenter now, and I don't know how to introduce the next person because it's me. So that's been fantastic, Stephanie. Well done on both. As Alex says, I'm sure we'll bring more dashboards your way.
Bring them on.
Okay. Thanks very much. So over to me now with churn risk modeling. So teaser Tuesday, see what we're bringing to the product in the future. And on a more of a sadder note, this is about churn risk. So due to the current economic climate, this particular SaaS business has a churn problem. Lots of high-risk customers due to the cost of the product. Costs are going up, and we need to make sure we give the right customers discount when they need it so they don't churn. And I want to model the risk of churn and see how lowering or increasing the subscription value impacts the likelihood of churn. So let's give it a go. I'm going to pick on first customer at the top. We've already calculated his discount there. I'm going to type in his ID, and we've got the subscription value of $3,300. I'm going to lower that even lower to, nice and simple, $2,000. And we'll see if we can turn that 60% risk much lower. So I've reduced it by 2,000 and we've turned it to 45%. I can see here Mr. William Henry, 4031, he's 10% risk of churn, so we can probably get away with increasing that subscription value and find the sweet spot so that we're maintaining a healthy level of revenue. And we'll see what that comes out as. So 11%, and we've increased it by nearly $1,000. So already I can see what the effect of increasing and decreasing revenue individually across pockets of customers. I can slice and dice this. I'm using write back and different analytical methods to achieve that. So maintaining healthy revenue and making sure that customers are happy. And what an important time to do it. So these types of data apps are made possible by using write back and advanced analytics, with even more potential provided by Snowpark, for example, specifically Snowpark for Python, which is from Snowflake. So we'll be bringing more of these demos to you with shareable links, and over time we'll be building some of these features into the product for customers using Snowflake. Features like clustering and forecasting. So more from me in future. And to close, it's back over to Joe Bickley.
Awesome, Piers. Thank you. That's great. So I think these are really cool little examples because they show how essentially you can put a really simple business-focused user experience on top of what can be lots of complexity behind the scenes. So really great way to scale out and deploy more intelligence, more kind of machine learning logic, but given a really simple user experience for users to consume. So very excited to see more of those develop over the next couple of months as well. Cool. So the last topic that I wanted to touch on, so we won't demo this because it's kind of one of those things where the ideal is that this just happens and no one notices, and that almost becomes the best result. And that is how our engine is evolving to help drive self-service inside of Astrato. So Astrato itself is a tool where we're very much focused on enabling users to get the most out of their data and trying to do that in a no-code way, whether that's the way that we build some of the actions and the fun stuff that we showed in navigating through applications, but also taking that same approach to the way you work with and select your data. And it's a real challenge between how do you enable a user to kind of explore and try and figure things out for themselves with their data, and not to make a mistake along the way. So if I was to take two tables and join them together and then start summing on some revenue fields, how do I know whether those joins are correct? How do I know if the tables and the fields I've used are correct? And so what we've been investing very heavily in with our engine is to be able to generate and help guide the user to build the best queries essentially behind the scenes, hopefully without the user really even noticing, but to make sure they're getting the right results through their content. So a little bit of detail on that, if we could grab the next slide, is essentially what we're enhancing our engine to be able to handle is 2 or 3 real technical detail challenges when you take multiple tables from a warehouse and start combining them together using joins. And how that can surface itself is, and if you're not too familiar with the tech, we'll be sharing some really great blog posts to help walk you through some of these scenarios. But what you can experience with running queries against tables is scenarios where things like fan traps, chasm traps, and loops can cause you to see data and results that you don't expect. And what we've been investing in is trying to find a really unique way of solving some of those problems to make sure that we don't have to have deep expertise in understanding what those problems are, but solve them for the user. All of this is being based on what we refer to at Astrato as the unified star schema. And it's a methodology and approach that we use to structure the SQL that we generate, predominantly behind the scenes. And really, it's kind of focusing on solving a few key problems for users. One is when a user joins tables together, we help the user make sure that they've been joined the right way around, because the direction of joins between two tables, as much as it looks like a simple line in a diagram, is really important when it comes to automatically generating the SQL to get you the metric in the chart that you're expecting. We also then help use that information to make sure we generate the right query and avoid what we refer to as bad questions. And that is where sometimes with SQL generating tools, and some of our competitors still have this problem today, is it allows a user to generate a question that is just illogical. It doesn't make sense. And we'll see that in certain scenarios. Maybe if you have like a sales and inventory schema where you look at inventory by sales region, like those fields are available to a user to combine, but they may not have a logical relationship with each other. And some tools let you do that and give you really unusual results. It's, again, hard to explain. And then if that user passes them on to their colleagues or compares with other departments, they can get that kind of bad question kind of behavior as a result. And so we're trying to provide as much guidance as we can, automatically generating the right things. And on top of that, sometimes there is just complexity in the data structures that you have. And you need, if you're a more capable user and you understand the logic of how data has been implemented in a particular way, giving you the controls to be able to handle more complex scenarios. So there's a lot of technical detail in how this works. The main kind of focus from a takeaway from a business perspective is that we're aimed at making sure that users get the right results from their analytics experience without needing to kind of deal with complexity behind the scenes. And we'll be producing some more information for this. We'll be having some blog posts that are created by Francesco Pepini, who's an expert in this area, who's authored some of the content around it. And we'll be using that to share as much information as we can, help you understand a little bit about how this may be applicable to you and your workbooks and your creations. And then some videos as well, just to show how things can go wrong and how Astrato helps you get those things right. So we're very excited about this because for us, we think it's really unique and differentiating in the live query analytics segment, essentially. And so, yeah, we're very happy to be launching it to all of our customers. So I think that's it from the updates on the product and the topics we had today. So I think we're probably all due to come back on and pick out any of the questions that we've had come in through the channels as well. And you probably go to the next slide as well. So
Perhaps while we wait for questions, if there are many, can you give an example of how a fan trap looks like?
Yes, essentially. So when you kind of combine two tables together, let's say you've got a table with sales and a table with shipments, and one sales record may have 3 shipments in it. If you join those tables, when you look at the data that comes back, if you just do a very straightforward select star from sales, join 2 shipments, you'll see 3 records come back, and the sales number will be listed 3 times. So that's what you would see if you were writing SQL in a SQL editing tool. However, if you then put that into a visualization, that sales number will now be shown 3 times, summed together. And so you'll see a sales number that is potentially 3 times bigger than it actually should be, because that's how you can fall into a fan trap issue where one table makes the data fan out to be more effectively more than you were anticipating it to be. So the way we solve that is to change the structure of the queries, make sure it's nice and clean and efficient still, but give you the right numbers as you would expect. So if you wanted to say sum the sales and count the shipments, you can combine those 2 together in a visualization. So some great graphics to draw to illustrate, but essentially that's the way
I've heard though you're going to do a recording with some example slides
Absolutely.
and use cases, so that's coming on. So don't be scared, everyone. But maybe, well, still wait. Why does it matter now? Why wasn't fan trap an issue in the past? Why, or has it always been an issue?
It's always been an issue. I think what a lot of analytics products, I guess you have 2 scenarios. I think when you're a experienced SQL writer, you know how to craft queries, and you see records come back, you'll spot that, and you'll be able to maybe adjust your queries accordingly. If you're using an analytics product, the way a lot of tools have kind of bypassed it essentially is to extract data into a data model, often in memory, and that can therefore be solved in a totally different way. So it's really a specific problem about live query analytics tools where you're generating queries on the fly. So the SQL that you want to send to the warehouse needs to be correct, but you want to make sure that the user's not being given a complex experience when building visualizations. So it's certainly a more recent challenge, and there's been different approaches taken by different tools, so other BI tools that do live query. Some of them tackle it with some very, very complicated queries, or indeed some data model approaches are just flat out blocked in the product so that you cannot do analytics in a particular way. So our approach, we believe, is going to give you the most flexibility and the simplest experience overall. So,
Stephanie, question to you. You showcase your dashboard in the conversation with Piers, and immediately comments went around. I don't know what I'm seeing, but it looks beautiful, nicely aligned, organized, beautiful to the eye. And I'm a big fan of your work as well. But somehow I'm unable to achieve the same result. Is it a secret talent, or is there a methodology behind it? What's your secret? How do you do it?
You're on mute, Stephanie. But before she answers, probably because she's a data cloud today.
Oh yeah, I didn't wear my cloud.
Someone had to mention it.
Yeah. I am all about paying attention to the details. I think that's kind of what separates like a good from great visualization, is just paying attention to the small things and like the alignment and just the very tiny details that kind of make it look a little bit more polished.
So simple.
Yeah.
In the end. But my takeaways, good to great. Easy to ignore, but so relevant and such a difference, I think, in this market to be successful. It's not anymore an A, it needs to be an A+ to make a difference. Wonderful. Piers, I've had exposure to Python and R, did some of those online courses myself in the past. But, to a lot of folks, this is a very, very scary world. Sounds Python, it's a cool thing that everyone talks about, but really, implementing something, installing a Python script and getting value out of it in one form or another seems like an impossible thing to do. What's your view? Is it aspirational? Is it mature?
It's entirely valuable. It's definitely a mature space. Python's been around for a very long time. I couldn't tell you exactly when, but there's so much more potential. There's so much we can do. Any specialist visualization can be added using Python. You don't need a UI for it. We can store that in the database. We can run a model. We can run any form of analytics that we want now, all through Snowflake. And yeah, we've done this before with Visited Library. We know what we're doing. We've done clustering. We've done forecasting. But now we can run it at scale on row-level data and slice and dice in near real time. So it's live. I don't think anyone else can do that. Our product's live query, so in terms of doing this technique with Snowpark, our product's the right product for it.
Coming back to this, I think everybody wants to work with Python, get the value out of Python machine learning models and AI. I think nobody contests that in any shape or form, as we see that as well. Being consumers, looking at our TikTok viral videos, that just cannot let us drop down the phone. So we want to implement TikTok's algorithms in our business, but the business user doesn't know how to write Python. They have a data scientist. So how does it work today? Like today, I would need to go to a data scientist. I need to give them a task, get a result, and probably even in printed reports, if I'm lucky, since someone implement this. But ideally, as a business user, I want to have access to play around with it, change parameter inputs, get the value, get the results, and action on them right away. Isn't it too clunky to go directly to the data scientist every time?
Yeah, in most cases, you have to start sending an email or raise a ticket and be in this long queue of requests that may never get seen to. And it's typically a static output. By the time you get that output, it's out of date. That's why you need live data science. So, in terms of putting it into Snowpark and then putting it into a product like Astrato, it does mean that you can, example with clustering, you can connect the number of clusters to a slider and get an instant result, instant feedback. You can have that quick back and forth to tune it to exactly what the business user needs without them having to go back to the data scientist. And, okay, I've just realized I want to see it filtered by this particular month for this particular product. It's all done. The business user can do that. No special
I like
costs.
that. You mentioned a word I heard for the first time, live data science. Live BI, live data science, live write back, all builds a new way of doing analytics and working with data, which is live data apps. That's what we're building with Astrato, and it all comes together. So wonderful. With this, thank you so very much for your presentation, your work, for sharing what you've done today. All the questions and comments in the LinkedIn Live, genuinely appreciated. Remember, we're building public. We want your feedback, your ideas, and also discuss with you. So we are genuinely loving this. Thank you very much for attending this one. Watch us on YouTube and the other live sessions that we have. Look out for our releases, typically every 2 weeks. But of course, we'll be posting about them on the community and on our roadmap. Become part of our journey. We're excited to have you. And with this, remember, you were here when it was early. Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.